But there we are. Okay. Now, if I take a diameter of each of these circles, and here's the diameter of this circle. It's going to be represented by this arrow. And then I'll represent the diameter of this circle by an arrow, and the diameter of this one, and the diameter of this one. Now these circles that I'm using have diameters that I think reasonably well approximate the inner diameters of these jars here, the inner diameters of the tops of the jar, which is where the rain falls. No rain falls outside the inner diameter. It all goes outside. Okay. Now if I make a graph, if I take each of these diameters as my x coordinates, then I'll have something that looks like this. And I'm offsetting these arrows a little bit. And I'm not drawing these very accurately, although I'm doing my best. Let's see how I did there. Not bad, not bad. And then this one, yeah, okay. And then we'll do this one down here. Okay, now I've got these arrows, and I know what the weights of the water, how much water fell in each jar. So I'm going to make a vertical line through each of these x coordinates. Okay, my x coordinates are constant here on each line. So now I've got 5 vertical lines, and if on each of those vertical lines I sketch a point, then I'll have 5 points on a graph, and that graph might look something like this. That isn't very accurate. It looks a little different than this, but it kind of has a lot of characteristics of this graph. So the purple line is a graph of the weight of the water versus diameter of the inner diameter of the jar. So here's x equals diameter, and here's y equals the weight of the water. Now these have units, but we're not going to worry too much about that yet, and we will soon enough. Now if I wanted to get these diameters, I could take this ruler and say, yep, that's 1.5 inches. That's about 1.6 inches. Now I'll comment that these diameters should be closer now, not 1.5 and 1.6. This jar and this jar, the same lid fits the top of both jars. There might be some differences in the way the jars are constructed and the thickness of the glass up at the top, which would affect the diameters somewhat, but you expect these two diameters to be maybe closer than 1.5 and 1.6 inches, but that's okay. Now the inner diameter here looks to be about 2.5 inches, and here it seems to be about 3 inches. Okay? So we could say that this is 1.5 inches, 1.6 inches, 2.5 inches, and 3 inches. So now we would know what x coordinates to use here. We'd have a 1.5 here and a 3 here. Of course, 3 is twice as big as 1.5, so I don't really believe that, because this arrow is not twice as long as this one, I don't think. There, and there, yeah, actually it's pretty close. Okay, so this arrow should be a little longer, should be twice as long as the blue arrow. The orange arrow should be twice as long as the blue arrow. Still, we get a good idea of how this graph might be constructed, and you're going to be asked to construct the graph with somewhat more accurate numbers, but probably first just with these numbers, because they're fairly close. Okay, so that's where you're going to go, and you'll get some written instructions.